Europe is now the epicenter of the coronavirus.
This is the worst public health crisis for a generation.
Stay at home unless you absolutely have to go out.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of The Nexus. Now, you may have noticed I'm not in the studio. That's because, like millions of others, I'm working from home. So, in fact, is most of the Nexus team. The idea is to minimize the risk of catching and spreading the coronavirus. Today, we're going to be looking at lockdowns around Europe and the United States and asking an epidemiologist which countries got it right. We'll also be hearing from a lawyer in New York who says with the lockdown, it's actually a good time to be a criminal. We'll then head over to Seattle, where CEO Dan Price and all his employees have been working remotely for a month now. They don't call him the best boss in America for nothing. And if you're working from home, we have some advice on how to stop people bothering you. So, a lot to get through. Let's begin with this quick look at the people in lockdown.
Some breaking news out of Italy. All of Italy is now on lockdown. All of Italy is now on lockdown over the coronavirus.
People, please stay at home unless you absolutely have to go out.
Tutti insieme ce la faremo. Di combattere poi stando a casa.
Europe is now the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, with cases across the continent.
This is the worst public health crisis for a generation.
Worst health crisis that France has known in a century.
Wir sind in einer Situation.
The Spanish government looks set to follow in Italy's footsteps and impose a 15-day nationwide lockdown.
No one will be allowed to leave their homes in an effort to stop the spread of the virus.
All schools, colleges and childcare facilities in Ireland will close.
The virus is all over the world. It will continue to spread, but it can be slowed.
I'm officially declaring a national emergency.
What we have on our hands is a public health emergency.
And let's get right to the latest headlines on coronavirus, because there are a lot.
I am ordering all bars and restaurants in the state of Illinois to close.
We are calling for the home isolation of all seniors in the state of California.
Breaking news, Mayor de Blasio announces he is shutting down New York City's school system.
We are dealing with a challenge and a crisis that we have never seen in our lifetimes.
All bars across the city of New York will be closed.
All Broadway shows have been canceled up until April 12th.
I haven't seen the streets that empty here in the city. I mean, I just can't remember.
This place is like a ghost town.
There's tons of rumors around New York City that the city could be locked down.
We do not have the capacity to manage this number of cases. That's what happened in Italy. Let's start building temporary hospital facilities before that happens, because it will happen.
So even the city that never sleeps has succumbed to the coronavirus lockdown. Let's start in the United States, and we're going to start in New York with Vinoo Varghese. He owns a Wall Street law firm. Some of his staff are at home. He said they could stay at home if they felt they were concerned. He's actually in his office. And on the other side of the United States, in Seattle, Washington, we have Dan Price, the man who is frequently known as America's best boss, because he has paid his workers a minimum salary of $70,000 a year. And I don't think his reputation is being done any harm over this particular crisis, because he and his employees have been working from home now for a month. Dan, Vinoo, thank you both very much for joining us on The Nexus. Vinoo, I would like to start with you. You're in New York. You're on Wall Street. Tell us, what is the city like now?
It's somewhat of a ghost town. I mean, normally at this time of day, there are thousands and thousands of people walking through here, through the Wall Street area. My office is on Wall Street, to Wall Street. It overlooks Broadway and Wall Street. I can see Hamilton's grave from my window in Trinity Church, and there is hardly anybody walking around. It is quite a scene. It reminds me of that Will Smith movie, when he was the last man on the planet. It's a strange situation.
And you have allowed some of your employees to work from home today. What made you take that decision?
Well, we started this last week when this was where everything was trending. We sent out a thing that, people have the choice to work at home. Some of my employees are here. I have a couple in house because they've chosen to come in. The other ones are multiple employees are working from home, and we're doing a Zoom video conference every morning, twice a day with everybody, and then talking throughout the day as needed. When I get off the phone with you, I'm actually going to jump on Zoom again with one of my employees who's working from home. If someone feels sick, they don't want to come in, then don't come in. I mean, that's just basically it.
Apparently, the law courts are well, they're not very busy, and there's also a problem with few police on the streets. What's going on?
So the courts have basically, state and federal courts have issued these things basically that they're suspending all non-essential hearings. This is potentially going to create a civil liberties issue for those people that are incarcerated and looking for a trial. I mean, all defendants, criminal defendants in the country have a right to a speedy trial. So that's constitutionally based provision. This is going to put a strain on that. And one of the things that the police are doing right now is it's very clear that they were going to do this. I knew it was going to happen. They're going to start cutting back on the number of arrests. And basically the DA, the district attorney here in New York yesterday said something to the effect of that anything that doesn't lead to violence, that basically they're going to cite and release and give future court dates. And what this means is also from law enforcement's perspective, some of these guys are not, a lot of the law enforcement isn't going to be doing their regular work. So it's actually maybe the best time to be a criminal at this point.
You're actually saying that criminals will get away with it because of the coronavirus, because the police are being told not to make arrests. There's no point. The court systems aren't working properly.
It's not that the police have been not told to make arrests. What's going to happen is that there's going to be a scale back, and there already is, in ongoing investigation. So I might be saying it in a somewhat flippant manner, but I'm being serious. Look, I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
I represent people charged who are accused of crimes. I am not at all supporting lawlessness or anarchy in that point. The point is that the law enforcement is going to be constrained right now. So at this point, there's a time, there's going to be a lag before, obviously maybe for months, before law enforcement gets back to its regular routine of investigating people.
Let's flip over to the other side of the United States now, to Dan Price. Dan, you have a company, Gravity Payments. You're the CEO and founder of that company, and your employees are working remotely, as are you. What made you take that decision?
Well, we're looking at this as a health crisis and also an economic crisis. Our clients are small businesses that are dependent on all of us out there shopping. And so it's a really scary thing for them to see their sales. Some are down by 40, 50, 60%. Some are completely shut down, as you know, some of the restaurants and bars that are completely shut down. But all of us right now are managing the curve of this epidemic. And what that means is we need to limit our contact with each other. We need to stay 6 feet away from each other. We need to be really careful about sanitation and managing any surfaces we touch, because if I just go out there and interact with everybody, or if my employees do that, then we're going to overwhelm the public health system in a week or 2 weeks from now. And people that are in urgent need of critical care are not going to be able to get the care that they really need. So we're rationing contact with each other right now. And it's a horrible, difficult situation. But what's wonderful and exhilarating about it is that we're all in it together. And the sooner that we wake up to the crisis that we're in, the sooner that we can get back to life as normal, or as normal as it can be someday from now.
And Dan, some companies are going to be reluctant to let their employees work from home. They're concerned it might reduce their productivity. What have you noticed?
I would say Gravity, we have a very high autonomy culture where we trust our people, where they are very motivated. They're fighting for the little gal or guy every day. We're sticking up for the people that are fighting for the American dream. And so that really pushes us, small and medium-sized business owners that are targeted by monopolies through big payment schemes and software. We're trying to help them compete. So that's really motivating all of us. And it gives us that extra edge where we can work from home for several months and continue to work together, continue to collaborate. I will tell you, while this is one of the most difficult challenges I've ever faced in my life, and that's not an exaggeration, I've never been more proud of the work and the effort that my team is putting in than I am right now with everybody working from home.
Well, there's another company in your state, of course, and that is Amazon. We've seen the headlines that Amazon wants its employees, warehouse employees, to work overtime despite advice about social distancing. And we've heard that a lot of them are pretty unhappy about that. What's your take on that?
Well, we have to take this very seriously, and I think Amazon needs to do a lot more on several levels. One, they need to stop avoiding taxes. They need to pay their taxes, because I think this is proof that we are all in it together. And when you have one major big actor like Amazon or like Jeff Bezos basically saying they don't need to invest in the system, they can just take, but never give back, you end up having these big crises without the infrastructure to deal with it. But yes, we absolutely need Amazon to take more precautions. Now, I understand that we do need basic necessities, that Amazon and other retailers are delivering some of those basic necessities, but they need to really take this crisis seriously and keep their workers further apart and make sure that they're not having a high chance of infecting one another or coming into close contact with one another, like all of us are.
That's a good point, Dan, because of course Amazon has seen demand surge for parcels being delivered straight to home instead of people going to the high street. I wanted to ask you whether you've had to implement some special technology, laptops, and so on, in order to help your workers to actually work remotely.
We fortunately have our chief operating officer. Her name's Tammy Kroll, and she's probably one of the best incident crisis managers and preparers in the world. And so she had us all prepared for some sort of a crisis like this, where we would have problems. And that's gotten us way ahead of the curve. We've had to replace some phone systems and laptops here and there, but for the most part, we were prepared knowing that something like this could happen. And that's allowed us to continue to be productive, continue to support our small and medium-sized business clients. But we have a lot more work to do ahead of us, because we're still potentially in the early days of this crisis. And that crisis is spilling over into all these small businesses that are missing their revenue. We need to find creative solutions to keep them in business, because our economy depends on it.
I wanted to ask you if you think this is going to be the moment when the entire world starts to look at the actual model of working, and whether or not this is going to lead to a sort of a complete step change, if you like, a sea change in working.
Well, I really hope so, because up until this point, for my whole lifetime, work has been focused about making money and consolidating as much wealth and power to as few hands as possible. And I think what this crisis is teaching us is that we're all in it together. And if we are doing that proactively, we're actually going to be hurting everybody. So we need to shift from a model of trying to get Wall Street, trying to get shareholders, trying to get billionaires and CEOs to become more rich. And we need to shift to a model where everybody has their needs taken care of and can also contribute to society. And that's a really hard shift that needs to happen. But I think this crisis will pale in comparison to the many crises we will face. And the sooner we make that shift, the more that we will avoid all of that problem for all of us as humans, not just for people that don't have enough, but it'll spill over into the entire economy.
Dan, just one last question before you go, not directly related to the coronavirus, but you're often known as America's best boss because you pay your employees a minimum wage of $70,000 a year. In order to do that, you had to take a pay cut and make other sacrifices. I'm just wondering why you did that, and if it's actually paid off for you.
Yeah, well, taking $1 million pay cut and potentially decreasing the profits of my company from a couple $1 million down to zero felt like a big risk, and I had to mortgage my house and do a lot of things to kind of make it work. But it's worked out so well. It's paid off so well because we're providing a certain level of basic needs for everybody, where rather than trying to enrich the people at the top, we've brought our top of our pay scale down from 1.1 million down to 275,000. And so we just have a multiple of like 3 or 4 for people that work at Gravity, which is plenty for people to progress, to be able to be a little bit on the wealthier, more affluent side. But the scale, having the bottom elevated, allows everybody to have their needs met. And that's taken away distractions, that's increased our capability, increased our productivity as a company. And as a result, we're triple the size now, just 5 years later. But not only that, it's really benefited the people that work at Gravity. We went from 0 to 2 babies born per year to we've had almost 50 announced in 5 years, 15 just last year. People doubled or almost tripled their savings rate, and 70% of the company reported that they were able to pay down their debts. So those are some really wonderful things that just allow all of us to hopefully weather these types of storms, because people are so much better prepared in terms of their personal financial health.
Dan Price and Vinoo Varghese in New York, thank you so much for your contributions to the Nexus. We really appreciate that update from the United States. We are going to turn to continental Europe now. Italy.